on. Boom, we're here. Let's go. Let's go. This is amazing. Welcome to the show. We have Joe Spivak, but better known as Tank Ledger. He is a WWE superstar, and maybe a little bit more importantly, is from the graduating class below me at Montini Catholic High School.
I don't know, better known. It depends if you're from the WWE universe or from the Montini Bronco universe, because we have a Bronco stampede today. It's good to talk to you, brother. Let's go, man.
It's great to see you. We were just talking. We are both rocking the Starbucks right now. You talk about branding.
Caffeination, domination, spilling all over the place. Good thing I got a white desk. Let's mod.
Let's do it. Love it. Well, thanks again. Should we go Tank or should we go Joe? What do you want me to call you?
Depends on the question. I will say first, I wanted to say, yeah, you obviously are familiar with my dad who coached high school football. My dad was very familiar with you. I was talking to my dad before hopping on this. I'm like, Dad, I got to go. I got a podcast. He's like, who are you on a podcast with? What are you doing? I'm like, get this. I'm with Jack Westerkamp. He's like, the super fan, the Bronco himself. I'm like, yeah, dude, that Jack Westerkamp. So I cannot oversell the importance of Jack Westerkamp to the success of the Montini football team.
Well, it's important that people understand that because it's important. You talk about branding, to be known as the super fan after all these years. It's just incredible, and it's a testament to my hard work in high school.
My dad has frankly taken a lot of hits to the head. He's a little bit up there in age, but he still remembers Jack Westerkamp vividly. Is it a coincidence that my senior year when you were gone was the only year we didn't make it to the state finals? I don't think so.
Whoa, clip that, please. Well, hey, it's about you. We want to talk about you, Tank, and just what you've been able to build. I mean, I would encourage anyone who's listening to this to hear Tank or Joe's story, what he's been able to accomplish and how he does it through the use of personal branding. I think that that's so important. And a lot of the lessons from your career and your past and history and where you're headed can apply to anyone, really. And it honestly has had a huge impact on me when you think about putting yourself out there and just going for it. So I'm excited to get into it. I want to start, though, thinking back. Let's rewind. Let's get into childhood. When he wasn't Tank, when he was Joe. When Joe was growing up, were you always thinking, I want to be a professional wrestler? Because that's where he ended up. And I'm sure a lot of people have that dream, but I'm wondering, is that something when you were growing up, were you thinking about that on your path?
So not necessarily when I was growing up. My first love ever was Olympic or collegiate wrestling. I grew up in the States, so collegiate folk style wrestling, for those who know, was my first sport that I started in kindergarten. So actually, funny enough, I got to first grade and I met a best friend named Patrick Ladd, who, Jack, you know Pat Ladd. You guys were tearing up the student section, giving the boys the juice. Pat's one of my best friends. I'm actually officiating his wedding a year from now. So huge shout out to Pat Ladd, going back to Montini. But in like first grade, Pat Ladd's my best friend. He's like, oh, like, Joe, you wrestle. So like you like know like John Cena and Batista and all those things, right? I'm like, no, dude, like that's not the type of wrestler I'm talking about. I'm talking about Dan Gable. I'm talking about Rulon Gardner, man. And sure enough, we're in his basement one day playing with his action figures, and he pops on a Monday Night Raw, and I'm like, whoa, this is kind of sweet. So that was kind of my introduction to wrestling. But then, as you know, Jack, I fell in love with the game of football. And from my first football practice, I was in love with it. I was all in. And my dream was to play in the Big Ten and play in the NFL. And I got that first one down. And that second one was a little bit harder, but it was a heck of a journey. And I had a ton of fun doing it. But while, along that football journey, I like to say that, football was my vehicle for chasing a lot of dreams and meeting so many people and having so many experiences. Along that journey, I figured out that, since fourth grade, that first football practice, I knew that I loved football. I knew that I loved the controlled chaos, the violence, the intensity. But then through middle school, through high school, this probably won't surprise you, and through college, I started figuring out that I also love doing what we're doing right now, which is connecting, talking through a screen or talking with a microphone to a crowd, preferably looking in somebody's eyes and having a connection. And I was looking, going to all these different networking events, round tables, this, round tables, that. Nothing's really sticking, And one day in the weight room, one of our strength coaches, shout out Alex Spanos, now the head strength coach. Some of you may know him as the medium wearing strength coach.
Yes, he's a legend.
So branding, get that man on here.
That clip, we'll clip that in here so that people know what we're talking about. You've seen him.
Yeah, but Coach Spanos was like, Speves, man, like, you ever thought about wrestling like as a career? I'm like, nah. I'm like, love chaos and physicality and competition of football. And I love this crowd connection element of having a microphone. Like, well, damn, these things kind of come together pretty perfectly in the WWE. My word of the week last week was serendipity, and I thought that was pretty serendipitous. And I was like, all right, like let's start reaching out to people. And that's what I did, and it led me to where I'm at today. 2 years and a couple months into a WWE career that I didn't see coming, but I'm sure blessed to be having.
And it's unbelievable. What a story. And that's kind of news to me. I always figured that it was something that maybe you grew up wanting and you just kind of fall into it. And there are so many parallels. And it's like, because you kind of were behind the camera a little bit in college. Can you talk? Because you were kind of floating around the TV scene. You were on my TV monitors for a little bit.
About it is perfect because I went to Northwestern as a communications student. People are like, well, Northwestern has this great broadcast journalism school. Why didn't you do that? I had some hesitations about broadcast journalism, but like I said, I knew I wanted something kind of in that realm. I wanted something where I was talking. My dad always says, Jojo, you got the gift for gab. That's a father's way of saying that you talk way too much. So find a way to use it, bro. But that's what I was going to do. So in my time at Northwestern, I was very blessed that I found my way in front of the camera with some, broadcast news internships, but then also around campus at Northwestern with a lot of hosting, a lot of emceeing. I got a little bit involved in the theater community there, and actually was about to do an improv show at Second City right before COVID hit. So I was just constantly trying to, flex those different mic muscles any opportunity I could.
Yeah, totally. And so I think that kind of is a good segue into like being authentic, being yourself, and just throwing yourself out there in those moments when you're thinking about, the improv show, even though it didn't happen, but like going into it, being involved with theater, being in front of the mic and just getting in front of a crowd. How do you kind of prepare yourself for that? Is it something you just are born with, or how do you kind of flex that muscle?
I love what you said about just like throwing yourself into things. Because you give me this freaking awesome intro on our way into the podcast. You're like, you want to talk about personal brand and look at this guy. I'm like, dude, we're in the same boat, trying to get Instagram followers up, trying to find different media opportunities, trying to build my persona as Tank Ledger. I am very much a work in progress and absolutely in the infancies of the brand that I dream of building. So please, to every listener, please know that I am no branding expert, but I am in the same shoes as you guys. I am a listener of Breaking and Entering because I want to build a giant brand. And we're just workshopping together. Me and Jack had an awesome conversation last week on how we feed off of each other, chasing a dream. But so much of that is what you just said, which is just throwing yourself into things. Like I said, at Northwestern, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if it was going to be consulting, like everyone was saying, or broadcasting, or if it was going to be being a strength coach. I didn't know, but I was like, okay, I know I love performing. Okay, there's a intro to acting class for non-majors. Let's take that. I fall in love with that. Every week is an opportunity for me to get up and perform in front of some theater students. And I'm like, okay, these are reps. And their professor's like, hey, Joe, you're enjoying this. You can do a theater minor. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, reps. So totally just throwing myself into it. Obviously preparation is key, but also getting going. There's no time like the present. I feel like it's so easy. And I try to catch myself. I'm like, oh, well, I got excuse here, excuse there. Like, just go for it. Especially if there's something like it was for me, like being in front of people. If I have an opportunity to do an interview, to do a performance, to do a little talk, like I'm taking it.
Absolutely. It's perfect. And I can see the parallels now. With a football career, literally reps. It's reps. You're only going to get better at something if you keep doing and if you keep trying. And the only regret people have, and in my only regret is I didn't start sooner. I didn't start putting myself out sooner. I didn't, if you're a writer, if you're an artist, if you're someone that's trying to build something or just be a better version of yourself, you just have to start doing it. And it's going to be terrible at first. You're going to be awful. I'm still awful. We're all still awful, but it doesn't matter.
And isn't that, I'd love to hear your opinion on this, Jack, but isn't that like, it's the blessing and the curse of being a self-starter and being someone who has these dreams where it's like, you almost kind of feel like you're never doing enough. And now, sometimes I'm like, okay, jump into it, do the rep. But I'm also like, keep the main thing. So like, I'm curious, like you and Gino building out Breaking Entry, like, do you guys ever feel that way too? Of like, I'm never doing enough because I'm like, okay, I'm building this, but like, ooh, this might help, but I can't do that right now. So now I feel like I'm a lazy piece of crap because I can't do that one little thing, but I know I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's a blessing and a curse, and you just have to keep reminding yourself. If you keep putting in work, if you keep getting reps, you will be rewarded. It's just a matter of time, and it's really, really hard to maintain that consistency. But I think something especially that Gino has been incredible about has been for 4.5 years at this point, even longer, just continuing to put out content, good, bad, or ugly, whatever it is, put in the effort. Like you said, prepare, but also just be ready to jump into the water. It's like swimming. You either, you can stand outside the swimming pool and practice your freestyle stroke, or you can jump in and just start going.
Yeah, I have so much respect for what you just said about Gino and that consistency, especially like in posting and content, because that's one area that I've, quite frankly, all honesty, like I said, infancy of this brand building, I've slacked on my Instagram, on my Twitter, on my social media. And I'm like, well, I don't really like it. I don't want to be present in the moment. But it's like, well, Joe, you say you want to be a player in this media landscape. You say you want to build this brand. That is the world we live in. So like I've been trying to be way more consistent with my posting. We launched a little bit of an Instagram series, and I have so much respect for the way that you guys are doing that now and the way that Gino has been building it. That cannot be undersold.
Totally. And it's a good point you bring up. And I was kind of curious about this, when you're in the WWE universe, are they giving you like materials? Are they like kind of saying like, this is your brand, this is kind of how to build it out, this is what we're looking for? Or is it more like sink or swim? You kind of rise to the top. It's competitive in nature.
So yes to both. We have an amazing writing and creative staff from NXT all the way to the main roster. As anybody who watches our product can see, it is exciting. It's funny. People who've never been WWE fans before, my friends or family, they're like, I've tuned in for 2 weeks straight, and now I'm hooked. It's like the best soap opera ever. So we have amazing creative staff that will help you sift through ideas and are ultimately the ones giving you the big ideas that are going to be the big push on TV, if you will, for lack of a better term. But in terms of like you're talking about with your social media, your branding, what you're bringing to the table every day, that's on you. That's on you. I think that's the funny thing. People think that like when you get down here at NXT, it's build a wrestler and they're just like, oh, well, we're going to put you in these boots and these trunks and you're going to be the crazy guy that says this time. And it's like, no, they want to see what you have. Which is daunting for people, but also so exciting. I'm very blessed that I'm in a tag team. Shout out Hank and Tank on NXT, coming to the CW on October 1st. But we're constantly talking in the car, having coffee, grabbing dinner, Chipotle, whatever it is. And we'll say something like, that was funny. That's a promo. That's going to be somewhere. Just like write it down.
That's awesome.
I have literally like a shot. I don't know. I think we're not filming. I think this is just for the podcast. But behind me, I have 15 legal pads from the past year and a half of Hank and Tank of just stuff that we never know we're going to go back to. I don't know if anyone listening has watched the Sylvester Stallone documentary on Netflix, but it is awesome. If you're a Rocky fan and a Rambo fan like me,
of course.
Shout out to Coach Boo from Montini and the Cobra Corps. I don't know.
We had to.
The Cobra, maybe Sly's worst movie. I get sidetracked. We're going.
No, I love it.
If you watch this Sylvester Stallone documentary, he's going through and combing through all of these notepads, all of these recordings of all his ideas, and he's like 99% of this has never been used, will never be used, will never see the light of day. But the 1% was Rambo, was Rocky. And it's like, I get chills just talking about that right now. Cause it's like you were saying, like we just got to throw ourselves in. We got to stop judging ourselves. I'm working on this book right now, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Anyone who wants to live in the creative world, and really anyone who wants to live a full life, should read this. But she talks about how judgmental we are about our ideas, when she's like, just go, just start letting them fly. And it might suck. It might suck. Who cares? Don't judge. Don't judge. And boom, there's the one. And it's cool to see someone like Sly who did that and manifested it for himself and built something so special from just from consistency.
So that is kind of what my next question was going to lead into, is around the creative process. And you said you've got all the notepads, and I heard something similar around, like, Jerry Seinfeld would talk about how he's constantly in that frame of mind, just looking around like, oh, I could use this. This is something I could pull from. That's an idea. That's something. Do you think that you and Hank kind of operate similarly, where it's just you're just living the life? It's not like you're just locking yourself in a room and saying, let's come up with ideas now. It's like you're living it and then writing it down as you experience it.
We have, I think it's raining outside. I closed my windows. We're good. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
Florida rain. You got to be careful. Geez, I'm sorry. Totally. 100% on, I'm never on that Jerry Seinfeld wavelength. You got to talk about genius. Come on. That's Jerry Seinfeld when it comes to comedy and entertainment. But I think of, we have times and classes and workshops weekly down here to practice our promos or practice acting and things like that. And I can think about times where I've been in a crunch and I need to have some sort of entertaining bit to bring to class. And you sit down and you're like, I need this in the next hour. And it's like beating your head against a wall, as opposed to living your life, sitting down with a cup of coffee and just letting it fly, seeing what comes to your mind, what was funny about today. I think that is way more effective. Like I said, I'll shout out again, The Artist's Way. The book is just constantly preaching your morning pages. Get up 3 pages every day. Just let them rip, let them write, get it out of your head, and just get into the book, get into the pen. So I'm definitely just way more so on that. Like I said, not on that Jerry Seinfeld level, but definitely trying to be on that wavelength of just taking ideas that come to me. Like I said, I think me and Hank's best stuff, especially the promo stuff or the in-ring stuff, frankly, is when we're thinking of stuff and we're like, wait, that could work.
Yep.
Let's do it. Run with it.
Yeah. So that's it. And that's kind of the next phase that I wanted to ask about too, is you have all the ideas and now it's time to put them out in the world. How much value do you put on just getting them? You've gotten them out of your head. You've gotten them onto the notebook. Now we got to put it into practice and see if it actually is funny. Because I have a lot of ideas that I think personally are very funny, but the rest of the population doesn't think is as funny. So how do you go about going from notebook and idea to actually executing and being like, okay, let's throw it out there and see if it works?
I think on a kind of a like personal, hyper specific to Hank and Tank note, it's practicing these ideas, these bits, and maybe it's not funny, maybe it's serious, but we're looking to invoke this type of emotion. Trying these bits, trying these promos in a promo class or in a recorded promo that we're sending to a writer and saying, hey, what do you think about this? That's when it's kind of like feelers. And I think it's important to note that we're not giving up on things if it doesn't get the initial reaction we want.
Interesting.
Maybe we're like, okay, let's try it with somebody else. So let's try it a little bit differently. Maybe this was a little bit too much, but that line of that promo was still good. Let's try to put that in somewhere when we're out talking on TV or something like that. I think that also comes from us being very authentic to ourselves in our characters, if you want to call them that, of Hank and Tank. But yeah, just constantly, like you said, that is the difficult part, but I think it's getting it on camera in some sort of way or in front of our promo class in some sort of way so we could get a feeler. And then if it's really just a bomb, okay, noted, keep working. But most of the time it's like, okay, wait, we like this. Let's try to work it in again. Yeah.
So do you think like that's kind of the magic of the WWE is like the authenticity and like the just like the people of it? Cause I'm so interested to hear your thoughts on, the WWE is one of the most recognizable brands in the world, and it's been that way for decades. So I would love to hear your opinion on what has been able to, foster that success and that brand recognition over the years.
Absolutely. I'll start by saying that, like I said, I am new to this wrestling business, this wrestling world. I'm, just about 2 years into this wrestling world, and it is amazing, and it blows my mind every single day. You'd be amazed, Jack, and any listeners, like the levels and the nooks and crannies and flavors and textures of wrestling only in the ring. And then you get out of the ring and get into all the character development and things like that. We just simply do not have time today or this week to go through all of those nooks and crannies, because also, like I said, I can't even comprehend all of them right now. So it's an amazing thing. But as far as what makes it so special, I think you're exactly right. I think the people who have this success are the authentic ones. Our fans, the WWE universe, are the best fans in the world, the most loyal, supportive fans in the world. But they see through when somebody is not being authentic to themselves. It's cool hearing about how heels, how bad guys get in that frame of mind to be the evil person that they need to be, and connect that to authentic personal things. Because if they don't, like, once again, that's going to be see-through.
Yeah, it is incredible how easily an audience, whether it's of a product like something you eat or drink, or entertainment, something that you experience, the ability for an audience to pick up on someone that's inauthentic is so easy, and it completely ruins anything that you've built up before that.
It's so weird too, because sometimes it's like you couldn't even say why, but you just know it when you see it. And it's the same thing, when I'm working on a promo, or something that I want to say, or frankly, a move that I want to do in the ring, I can feel when I'm like, this isn't me. This isn't me. This doesn't feel the way I want it to. And not getting discouraged by that, I think, is super key. Just moving forward and being like, okay, this is good. Like, I have a sense of self.
Yeah. So is that kind of the trigger for you? Is, when you start to feel the pull, when you start to feel like, similarly, like if you're running and you feel your hamstrings start to tighten up a little bit, when you're trying to create and do new things and come up with new ideas, and you feel that inauthenticity, like, this isn't me, is that an immediate shutdown for you?
I mean, that was pretty messed up. You brought up the hamstring. So I did tear my hamstring. I remember that was it's okay.
We'll talk about that too.
Obviously kidding. So over that. Crazy how God works.
I'm over it. I don't care. I don't care.
All right, I'm gonna leave. That was a good podcast. No. Yeah, I think it is. I think there's a feel. There's a feel. And once again, don't have this figured out. Me and Hank are figuring this out day by day by day. But I can say with confidence that when we are working on a promo, when we're delivering a message that we want to deliver to the best fans, to the WWE universe, when we can feel it, we can feel it, and we know they can feel it. When we're thinking about what we want to say, and we're practicing what we want to say to the WWE universe, and we're like, this doesn't feel like us. We got to get to the drawing board. We got to change up what we're saying, because, like we said, that will be see-through. But yeah, I would agree that, like you said, it's you start feeling that tug, and you're like, okay, let's change something. Let's not beat our head against walls. Sometimes it's just the timing. Sometimes it's just the back and forth between me and Hank and Tank. Me and Hank. Sometimes it's just, hey, you try saying this line, I'll try saying this line. Let's flip the roles a little bit.
That's awesome.
It's not all. It's definitely not, throw the whole thing out, especially when we're getting awesome stuff. A lot of times, like from our writers.
Yeah. So just being flexible, being willing to do something different, not having like a big ego. And I think that's something that people can really kind of hang on to. And similarly, like when you start to put yourself out there and you start to really commit to, putting your name, putting your brand out and trying to evolve it, you have to just let your ego go, because there will be so many people and there will be so many times where you're like, this is embarrassing or it's cringe, but ultimately you're the one that decides what's embarrassing or cringe.
Yeah, and it's weird, because I've been thinking about ego a lot lately, and I feel like a hypocrite because I haven't read the book that everybody's probably thinking about right now. Ego is the Enemy. It's been in my Amazon shopping cart for like 3 months, but at the same time, I have a stack of like 6 books behind me that I haven't touched. So I'm like, I'm not buying another one. Gotta read more. But I've been thinking about ego a lot lately because, like you said, you need to leave your ego at the door in this creative and media landscape. You gotta try stuff. You gotta put it out there, even if it's cringe, even if you're not sure. You gotta try it. But then at the same time, it's like, you need a certain level of ego, a certain level of identity and self to know what this brand you're trying to put out there is. So that balance is something that's super interesting. And like I said, I'm trying to dive more into social media right now. And like I leave my ego and I'm posting more, but I still have pride in what I'm doing. Maybe I need to turn that back once in a while to be like, hey, just get it out there. Content. Is it good? Does it have a piece of you? Do you like it enough? Cool. Get it out there. It doesn't need to be perfect. But it's still, I still want it to be me. Which is, I think that's something I'm always going to be navigating. I think, it's the same deal. It's that same feel of like, ooh, this type of post, this type of video, this type of content is getting the clicks and I enjoy this. Okay, let's lean heavier into that.
Yep, exactly. And I think I love what you said too. If it has a piece of you, then go and post it. As long as because it can sound almost contradictory of like, don't put it out there if it's not you, but also put it out there no matter what. Also, make sure you're authentic the whole time. So it's a lot to kind of navigate, but I think in everyone's brain, you kind of have a sense of, whether or not you're being authentic or not, no matter what. So you might as well just post it out there and just see how it feels, because you're just going to open yourself up to, whether it's negative or positive feedback, but you're getting feedback regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. I don't think we could dive into all of this right now, but Jack, obviously you and I are friends. We go back to high school way before Tank Ledger was a twinkle in my eyes, I guess you could say, before I ever knew that would be my future. Joe Spivak. And it's weird because now in the WWE world, we've already addressed I am Joe Spivak, but I'm also Tank Ledger. I look at my social media and I'm like, well, my main thing is being Tank Ledger, is being there for the NXT universe, for the WWE universe. And how do I merge my Joe Spivak on social media and in life and in the professional career world with Tank Ledger? How do those feed into each other? And how do I make sure that those aren't clashing? Because I'm in a great point right now where Tank is Joe and Joe is Tank. I'll turn the notch up a little bit when I'm in a wrestling ring, when I'm in the middle of a fight. Of course, who wouldn't? But I think, you as my friend can see that too, that this guy's not putting on an act. And I want to continue that I keep those aligned, because I don't want it to distract you who know Joe, and I don't want to distract the NXT universe who knows Tank.
Yeah, it's perfect. And I was going to bring that up too. Like, just your brand, even before, like, and this is for anyone, you don't have to be a celebrity to have a brand and be personal brand. And you don't need to be like in the entertainment industry or media to have a brand. And so it kind of is a perfect segue with Joe growing up. Joe's brand was always positivity, excitement, energy, just being, this bubble of joy for people all around. And I knew that in high school. I knew that from then on, everyone knew it. So I want to hear your thoughts, because anyone can have their own personal brand, and it can be as, tight or as wide as you want it to be. You can just be the person in the office that everyone knows is going to have a smile on their face, or whatever it may be. I want to hear like your thought. Yeah.
Real quickly, before you ask your question, I just want to say something. First of all, thank you for saying that, being a positive, joyful person. I try to be, so thank you for saying that. But before you ask your question, I just want to add that, like, whether you think you have a brand or not, you have one. Whether you're trying to build your brand or not, you have one. People know you for something. So you may as well invest in it and take a step back and think, how am I perceived? Yes, we should all have, self-confidence and be ourselves and be comfortable in our own skin and know what we bring to the table and identify ourselves by our capabilities. But how you are perceived is going to affect the opportunities that you're receiving. So how dare us not invest in that brand? Because people are looking at it either way. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to get that thought out so I could focus on your question, buddy.
No, I love that. And I'll quickly toss one right back at you. What about for someone who's, maybe more introverted, and they're like, I don't like talking about myself. I don't like bringing up, I don't like, the social interaction. I'm way more comfortable just being on my own. How can they succeed? How can they create more value for themselves and more opportunities?
That's such a great question. And it's so hard because I'm like, if anyone couldn't tell from the podcast, I'm a bit of an extrovert. I like to
exactly.
I like to be, I'll be honest. I like being the center of attention. I like getting people going. But gosh, I think it just, I don't want to be cliche or repetitive, but just like being authentic to who you are.
Yep.
Even if you're introverted and you're not, honestly, if you're not as much of a loudmouth as I am, it's probably going to serve you better. You're probably going to rub a lot less people the wrong way. But knowing the unique things you bring to the table, brother Jack, you said like my whole life, Joe was this optimistic person. I always believed in enthusiasm, and what that all stems from is my grandma Spivak saying, "Be different, Joey. Be different, Joey." Telling that to my dad, him and my mom passing that down to me. Be different, Joey. Whether you're introverted or extroverted, you're different in some unique way. We live in this. I know there's enough bad things going on in the world, but also there's a lot of really cool people, and every single one of us is different. So I think it's just kind of, I would guess, and like I said, this is from the extroverted, very loud, intense person saying this, but I think it just comes down to leaning into your differences and owning them. And I will say that even as an extrovert, it is very uncomfortable to talk about yourself. I've gotten good at it. I've gotten better at it because of my job, because of putting myself in front of people. It goes back to high school football and getting recruited for college football. You got to sell yourself. But it is uncomfortable for everybody to say, hey, this is what I bring to the table. Because frankly, there's a lot of good people out there, and most of us want to be humble. We want to listen. But we got to, especially in our careers, where we want the opportunities because we know we can bring to the table. We got to be willing to sell ourselves and know our differences.
I love it. Yeah, it's such a good point. No matter what, whether you're introverted, extroverted, own it. Just be yourself. And I love that your grandma saying and passing down those words has now spanned 2 generations. It's a lesson that if you do have like the ability to spread knowledge and inspire someone to get out of and just put themselves out there and be authentic to themselves, then do it. Like you owe it to the world, because in this kind of, we were talking about earlier, when you're posting and you're putting yourself out there, it's so inspiring to see someone else, and it's so motivating to see someone else that's in a similar position as you going out and doing it. And it's kind of like an invitation to yourself and the rest of the people in your network to just go out and just put yourself out there.
Yeah. And I think that starts, obviously this is a branding podcast, and you guys talk about advertising and media. It is very social media centric. When we talk about putting ourselves out there, obviously media is a big part of what we're talking about, but also for the listeners that are the introvert that don't lean into social media in that realm, like you can still build your brand at your office, build your brand at your job that's primarily online, whatever it is. Put yourself out there for the new intern that maybe they need some help from you and you can help them out. There's still ways to make yourself different and separate yourself that go far beyond social media. Like I said, I like to think, and I try to hold myself to a standard of doing that every single day. And if you want to say living your brand, I try to do that every single day because I know what my values are. And if you want to call that branding, cool. I call that waking up as myself and giving thanks to the good Lord. But it's not just social media. And I think, Jack, you and Gino would totally agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 100%. You just live your reputation and you live your brand and you just put yourself out there. So you nailed it right there. This is a little bit of a shift, but I'm curious. Do you ever wake up and you're just like, this is crazy that my job is to get in the ring and just kick ass?
Like all the time. All the time. Have I ever stopped waking up like that? You got to come down here, fly to Orlando, and punch me in the face. I definitely, and that's not to say that there's not days where you're sore or you got a lot on the plate. There's always going to be those days. But I look at what so many other people are going through and the battles that people are faced with, and the battles that I'll have down further in my life. But I look at what I have in front of me right now, what my workday is, the people I'm surrounded by. I've got friends like you across the country. I've got my Northwestern football brothers. I've got a healthy family. I've got a beautiful girlfriend who loves me. I've got a Jesus Christ. I'm like, oh my gosh. And now I get to go in, and my workday is work out, get in the rain, kick some ass, watch some film, get in the rain, kick a little more ass, come home, eat some dinner. Come on.
It's beautiful. I mean, because you're talking to an audience of people that go into an office, and honestly, like the advertising industry and marketing, it's a cool job. You come up with cool ideas and creative ideas, but you might be the first guest that we've had that goes in and kicks ass for a living. So,
And I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed. But I think also just like that perspective. Once again, it better be easy for me to have that perspective because, like we said, I go and I kick ass for a living. But I think there's always days, no matter what our job is, advertising, wrestling, go down the list of any career. Someone's always got it worse. Somebody's
yep.
always got it worse. And that's not to trivialize our problems. We still have our days. We still have our struggles. But man, I just feel like perspective has been.
It matters. It matters so much, and it's such a good driver for work ethic as well. And you see, like, as a audience member, you see the top of the iceberg in terms of what you do from an entertainment standpoint. But as we're hearing, there's so much that goes beyond it. And it's similarly like if you're creating an advertisement, all that people see is that 15-second Super Bowl commercial. They don't see the days and months and years of work that it takes to get to that point.
I can't even imagine all of the businessing that goes in. Businessing, that's not a word.
It's a word now.
It is now. Damn straight. We made it happen.
That's it. That's an exclusive. That's a breaking and entering exclusive. Businessing. Write it down.
Period. Put that on a shirt.
That's going to be the graphic for this episode. Yeah, businessing. Businessing. Don't worry about it. No one would second guess you.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
No, it's so funny. But yeah, I think that is kind of crucial too, is you in creating content and branding yourself to kind of bring it all back home. It is years, sometimes decades of putting in work and seeing almost zero results. And so to be able to kind of shift the mindset, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as someone who's you're in the middle of this rise right now. And you're at a level where you're growing and growing, but you're still at a point where you're putting in work and you're doing things every day. And there's so much that goes out there that maybe people don't see, or it doesn't get the traction that you think it will. How do you stay motivated to keep putting things out there?
Oh gosh. I just feel like I just love this conversation so much. And I love saying like, I'm trying to be on the rise, trying to just keep that graph moving up and to the right at all times. But like I said, I believe I'm at the infancy of the potential I have, the impact that I want to make in the world. And I think we all are. But just before we talk about like staying motivated, I just think about like, we see the Joe Rogans, the Sylvester Stallones, go down the list. The Dave Portnoy, whatever your opinion is on Barstool, he's doing the thing. But all these people that were like, oh, they got it. They figured it out. They cracked the code. Well, yeah, they cracked the code, but they cracked the code over 2 decades of grinding. We can't forget that social media just pollutes our minds, and we think we're constantly looking for like the quick fix. And I think just like falling in love with the journey is the quick fix. I think that goes right to the question of how to stay motivated. Is like, I believe that I'm doing things today that are going to make me a better version of myself for tomorrow and for a year from now and for 10 years from now. I don't know exactly what it is 10 years from now. I have ideas. I have ideas about where Hank and Tank will be then, where I'll be in the wrestling world then, where I'll be in the professional speaking world then and broadcasting. I have ideas and dreams, but I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But I got the idea. I know kind of what it might look like. I know what I'm passionate about and what I'm capable of. So today is just about doing the next right thing. I think falling in love with doing the next right thing is everything. John Cena, whether you're a wrestling fan or not, you know who John Cena is. But he's spoken to us at NXT on a couple different occasions, and that's what he always preaches is, there's always going to be problems. There's always going to be crap. There's going to be good days. There's going to be bad days. Just do the next right thing.
Love it. Do the next right thing. It's like the idea of businessing, period. Do the next right thing. Quote, John Cena.
Joe Spivak.
Yeah. Quote, Tank Ledger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's the same idea. It's like falling in love with the process. And if you're doing something, I think this is good advice for like anyone who's in any career. Like if you're doing something and the work itself is like exhausting to you and you don't find joy in what you're doing, then get out. Like if you're only in it for like, that's my opinion. Like if you're only in it and you can see kind of like the 5 years from now, you want to achieve this goal and be at this exact moment. Like to your point, it's kind of really hard to predict where you're going to be and how life's going to work out.
Yeah. And I think you got to have that dream and that picture of what you want that's attached to your passions, your capabilities. But yeah, you can't be so married to it that you miss something coming right by your desk. I think you're absolutely on right. You know that, and you know this. You're like you said to me, like you and Gino are grinding, building up, breaking, and entering. You're telling me you're not exhausted some days? Yeah. Excuse my French, we're bullshit. You have. I love my job, but after a long day in the rain and a lot of creative work on thinking about what Hank and Tank can do next, I am exhausted some days. And something like, you know, to the last couple hours of the day, I'm like, I don't really feel like doing this right now. But then I think about myself where I'm like, I get those days where I get cooking, where me and Hank are grinding in the way, where I get cooking on something creative. And I'm like, oh, wait, no, we need to film something for this tomorrow because this is good and we love this. I think it's, you can't expect it to all be sunshine and rainbows, but it's like you need to have something, like we said, when you look at your social media, have it be something that's you. When what you're doing, even if it's not your dream job right now, even if it's not getting in the ring and kicking ass for a living, whatever it is, like I feel like your job, you want to have something that excites you.
I love it.
Something my dad talked to me a lot about it. It was before I found wrestling, but I'm thinking about, okay, you know, eventually football is going to end. What am I going to do next? He's like, dude, take the pressure off yourself. Like, you don't know exactly what it's going to be. Find something you love in one of these jobs. Lean into that. It'll lead you to something else. Not trying to figure out the whole thing right away or with your first job or with the first podcast you start or with the first post that you do. Just have something.
Yeah. So yeah, having a North Star, having a vision, you got to dream. You got to dream. And it's, you know, I feel like I've heard this before. I don't know exactly where it's from, but it's like talking about the dream every day. It's like someone was doing like a motivational speech or whatever. And it's like, we would talk about the dream every day. We would never like let it go. And so it's like that process, having something to work towards. I totally understand that. And I think it's super powerful.
I know we're not filming, but the book I keep always out. It's how long is this book?
We'll clip this. We can put this as a clip.
42 pages. If you don't order it off Amazon and read it right now, you probably don't care about your dreams, but read The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. The Strangest Secret, this is a talk given by Earl Nightingale, who was a speaker primarily, I believe primarily in the 50s and 60s, I want to say. But Earl Nightingale was a speaker. He gave this talk called The Strangest Secret. And in this little book, or if you listen to it on YouTube, it's on Spotify too, Earl Nightingale gives the strangest secret to success. And you wouldn't believe it. The strangest secret to success, you can unlock all your hopes and dreams, is that we become what we think about. My mom and dad would play this talk, The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, regularly as we were eating breakfast in the morning. My dad was a little crazy. Sometimes it was AC/DC. Other dads.
It was game day. It was AC/DC.
Yeah, exactly. But me and my sisters believed that we become what we think about. And for me, a young Joe Spivak, I was like, okay, well, all I want to do is play Big Ten football. So if I think about it every single day, it's just going to happen. And, you know, in the book, Earl talks about, you know, write your goal, write it on a note card, carry it around with you and look at it multiple times throughout the day and attack it. Like you said, you cannot overstate the importance of saying who you're going to be, saying your dreams out loud and making them happen. If you think about it every single day, it will happen.
So how about right now? What do you think about now? Where do you see yourself kind of moving towards? What are the dreams and aspirations? What's next for Tank Ledger?
It's funny you bring that up. So I was literally having this conversation with my better half the other day about like, this is what I got. These are kind of my main objectives right now. This note card. These are the big ones for the year. And it's different. It's kind of different than, you know, when I was playing football and it was start the season, get this many tackles, this many sacks, or they're more so have some of my goals are having X amount of speaking opportunities, get to this level of like crowd connection and ratings for Hank and Tank. But like I said, it's just about moving up and to the right. And I know that these lists I got in front of me right now are the next right things. And they're going to ebb and flow. I'm going to add things. But right now I'm very, very tunnel vision on my next few weeks, on getting ready for Hank and Tank to move to the CW. We're moving to a bigger network from USA Network to the CW on October 1st. So everything's kind of streamlined at that. What can I do to promote our brand? What can I do in the ring to train, to get better, to get ready for our fights that are going to be on this new network in front of more people than ever? That is the main thing right now for sure.
Love it. Hell yes. Well, that's all I got. I appreciate it. Is there anything you want to leave the people with as we close out one of probably my favorite episodes, my favorite conversations I've ever had?
This was awesome. I just looked at the time. It says 45 minutes ago. I feel like we were talking for about 15. No, dude, I can't thank you enough. I cannot credit you and Gino enough. I'm sure you've told your story on your podcast before, but from what I understand is that you're making decent money, doing some financing, doing some businessing, as we would say. And you said, nah, to hell with that. I'm chasing a dream. I'm going full-time, all in. I'm breaking and entering. You are living it, brother. And I just can't pat you on the back and give you enough flowers for, once again, the cojones, the balls it takes to do that and bet on yourself. I am all about betting on yourself. And that's what I'm trying to do in this world. I guess what I'd end with my out would be, smile at people more. We're just talking. This is a great podcast. Jack, I've loved you, and I always have loved you because I think about it, Montini. You always had a smile on your face. You always were making other people smile. My dad taught me and my sisters that enthusiasm is infectious, and that doesn't mean you have to be like Tank Ledger or Jack Westerkamp and jumping in people's face. But you can smile, you can be welcoming, you can be real, you can listen. That is enthusiasm too. And I just think it's amazing what happens when we spread that throughout our workplace, throughout our communities, throughout our families.
Hell yes. Thank you so much, Joe, Tank Ledger, whatever you want to call him. It doesn't matter. But you can see him on the CW starting October 1st.
On the CW starting October 1st. Look out for Hank and Tank, baby. Honk, honk.
Honk, honk, brother. Thanks again, and have a good one.